Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be taking you through a few slides and also sharing a few ideas I've had, which have very much come from my experience of both in the UX and design world, but also in experimentation over the last 10 or 15 years. There's quite a few things going on, I think, at the moment. There's quite a lot of misconceptions flying around, and I think it's just important to look at these and reflect sometimes, and also think about how we can do things better. I'm Chris Gibbins. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at Creative CX, and a little bit about us. We run experimentation programs, fully manage them for a whole range of different clients in all different sectors, but we do a lot of training and enablement as well with client teams, because a lot of clients want to build their experimentation teams internally rather than just use an agency to fully manage these days. So we help them ramp up the velocity and scale. We support some big teams like the Sky team with advanced experimentation, the server-side build, etc. And also, as sites are becoming more complicated these days, the development gets harder too. So we support with SPA sites. And then with a lot of clients, we run opportunity audits, which are UX, behavioral research and data analysis packages that can basically help them, give them some really good evidence and data to drive their experimentation program and roadmaps. And that's us, really. So now I'll crack on with the presentation. And I think a lot of it is around the customer centricity. And it's no secret that it's important for all teams, whether you're a customer experience team or just any of the teams, to have the customer in front of mind, whatever you're doing, whether you're designing or optimizing. So it's no secret, really. A nice quote I like here actually is that 32% of all customers would stop doing business with a brand they loved after one bad experience, which I think is a really great quote. And another good quote, it's always good to have one from Jeff Bezos. You probably know this, but it's quite interesting for someone who's a massive fan of experimentation and very much driving, very data-driven, very kind of engineering and data-driven guy. It's good to know that he has the customer at front of mind. Obviously, it makes financial sense, doesn't it? So the most important single thing is to focus obsessively on the customer, he says. Our goal is to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. And whether you hate the site, like actually a lot of designers don't like the Amazon site, whether you love it or hate it, the one thing it's great at is giving you what you want when you need it, and making those tasks, just making those tasks simple and effortless, like when you want to pay. You know, that's always been the great side of them. It's a bit like booking.com, isn't it? You know, another love and hate relationship around booking.com for a lot of people. But again, when it comes to getting the job done, they're really good at this. And when it comes to that point where you need to find out suddenly, does it do breakfast? Is breakfast included or not? They seem to do a great job of putting the information in front of you when you need it most. And that's why they've grown so much. So I guess back to my background a little bit. I spent a lot of time in the design and UX world over the years, and also in the experimentation world. And there are two parts to this, aren't there, really? There's designing brand new digital products and services, and often a job of different people is the continual improvement and optimization and innovation of those digital products and services once they're built. And actually, you know, a lot of interestingly, a lot of product design now is focused on continually improving websites, and a lot of UX is as well. But whilst design thinking, I'm not sure how many of you will know a lot about design thinking, but it's absolutely massive out there at the moment, and it's almost been like it's like a kind of amazing PR and marketing for user-centered design. User-centered design had been there for so long, but then design thinking was kind of promoted by IDEO and Stanford quite heavily, and became kind of so popular in big organizations. And the great thing about it, originally design was owned by a small team and almost thought of as just the visual design, just making it pretty type of thing. But of course, anybody who works in that area knows that it's the whole process. It's about understanding the user needs. It's about going out there and talking to customers and building something that they actually want. And that's why user-centered design was so important. But to get it into the masses, to publicize and get design thinking, it was kind of rebranded in this way. And now 75% of organizations, according to this report and survey, say they're engaged in design thinking. It's absolutely massive. And there's an excellent article by Gerald Spall, actually, worth reading. I've included in here as well. Shush, don't tell them there's no magic in design thinking. So that's all well and good. But in experimentation, or CRO, or optimization, or A/B testing, I believe it has a bit of an image problem. Not if you live in that world yourself, but actually in the other departments, in the other people in businesses, in the design teams and UX teams, they don't always have such a rosy opinion of experimentation. So there's often a thought, but it's not that customer centric actually, that it's just about the business all the time, that it's about tricking people with psychological tactics or manipulating users, all that kind of not very nice language really. And the other thing is, only for small iterative changes, people, I don't think, understand the massive impact that you can have through experimentation. And some people think it's about short-term gains. You're not just little tricks which are going to work in the short term to maybe give you a few extra percentage uplifts in click-through rates, but nothing that will survive a long term. So these are, it's a bit of bad press really, isn't it? But it's important sometimes to understand what other people think of what you're doing. And it certainly wasn't helped by what's happened in the past, actually. And I thought I would highlight this one. And I actually remember this issue because the owner of Ryanair was actually on TV defending it, which was hilarious. And the issue is, I'll explain here, is that their option for not taking travel insurance was hidden in the country of residence drop down, which is absolutely crazy. And hilariously, it's actually done in alphabetical order, so it comes after Denmark. Don't insure me. And this is obviously a dodgy tactic to increase upsell of travel insurance for anybody trying to book a flight. But the owner was adamant that it was just part of a design and it was obvious to find, so it was absolutely hilarious. But it did a bad thing for the reputation of of A/B testing and of the kind of psychological tricks or manipulation. The other example is a bit more recent, and this is all to do with booking companies like Booking.com and also Hotels.com, and their use of the social proof, but using unrealistic data. So the first problems, which the watchdog really took them to court, I was going to say, or really really highlighted the bad tactics, was that they were, when you were going on to look at a hotel room, when they said that 400 people were looking at this, actually it didn't include it for the dates that you were looking. So it didn't matter at all. They were just including anyone who's looking at the hotel, even if it was for a different date. So that was like the first thing. And then they did make some changes and improve this. But this is actually the second issue, is that the fact is Booking.com doesn't have the right to sell every single room in the hotel. So when it displays a message saying only one room left, like in this story by a complaining user, it says only one room left in high demand. And this user found out when they actually got to the guest house that they told him you're the only person in the room tonight. So there were plenty of rooms left, but actually there was only one left available through booking. So it's a slightly dodgy practice, isn't it? Which again has given this whole field a bit of a bad reputation. And another one that made the headlines was, and this isn't dodgy reputation, but this is about I think in some part why people think of A/B testing as just for very small changes. So this was the infamous 41 Shades of Blue experiment, which many of you may have heard of. And if you haven't, I've included some links on this slide too. So what they did actually, they first were talking to the designers, but then they decided to go with a very, very data-driven approach and A/B test 41 different shades of blue on the blue used on the links on the ads on the search results pages. And they found that actually a slightly purpler shade of blue was more conducive to clicking than a slightly greener shade of blue. And it made a massive $200 million a year in ad revenue, that tiny, tiny change. Interestingly, this caused a bit of a storm at Google too, and one of Google's top designers cited this as one of the reasons that they were leaving Google, because the computer was telling us how to design, and maybe there isn't a room for real designers anymore. But I've included a link there as well to his goodbye Google message. And then the other example, and this is really recent, if you thought all the others were quite old now, this is really recent, and I found this because I'd signed up to Eurosport. I'm not sure where I signed up to it. That's the interesting thing. I think I signed up to a free trial, and then, as I'm sure hundreds of other people do, I forgot to cancel that free trial, and then I ended up paying for it. Anyway, I did find out that I was still signed up, and I wanted to cancel it. And I must have spent 20 minutes looking around the app trying to find out how to cancel this subscription. It was really tricky, and I kept on going back to this view here under memberships and subscriptions for Eurosport Player. This had to be the only way, but the only options here were advanced controls, video settings, or next payment, subscription will end. So it just didn't make sense at all. And then, to my surprise, the details, the options were actually under advanced controls, video settings. And I'm quite a trusting guy, I would say, normally. And I would hope that this was an accident, but I very much doubt that it was. I think they were trying to reduce cancellation rates, and they were conducting A/B tests, and this was the winner. So this, even though this hasn't been in the news, this one, I think it's just one of many examples of where of drawing that line between doing the right thing and being ethical, and then doing something less ethical, which I'll go into in a bit later. And then just one more thing that's quite interesting, thinking about the reputation. I was at a UX conference early on in the year, and it was a UX design conference. So a lot of product designers there, a lot of UX research, a lot of UX designers. And I thought it was great because there was a CRO expert, so a client-side CRO expert, who was going to talk about data and talk about design impact and data. And he presented some real good case studies, showing the different A/B tests, showing one of those quizzes, as normal. But it didn't go down very well with the audience. And this one audience member in particular, a heckler, as I said here, shouted out towards the end in questions, where does creativity come into the equation? I'm not very inspired. Where's the human spirit behind what you're talking about? And it kind of, it was a very good illustration to me as I was writing this down, a very good illustration as to the reputation problems, you know, around experimentation. And how if we really want to improve experimentation and the impact of it, and get a seat at the table throughout the whole of a business, then we need to make some changes. So yes, these issues and misconceptions are holding back experimentation, I believe, from large-scale adoption. Because when you want to embed experimentation throughout the whole of your organizations, you need to work with all the different teams. You need a common language, and you need them to respect what you're doing and your intentions around what you're doing too. But I do believe much of this is undeserved. For example, I think experimentation is at its heart customer-centric, because we're making decisions based on the actions of users, which in my mind is extremely customer-centric, isn't it? You are really, the customers are voting with their actions, with their feet. And it can really make a difference to people's lives. That is why I've been passionate about this subject, about UX and about experimentation for so long, is because I really believe that we can make a difference to the experiences that people have and save them time. And hopefully, you know, if we do great design work and if we optimize pages, then we will cut down the time we need to waste spending on tasks like, on the boring parts of the task, like buying things, you know, or ordering stuff. And just a reminder, these are some of the things, you know, just looking back over the last, well, before the pandemic, over the last 6 months or so at some of the tests. And for example, we're increased 40% more people finding and using the search on a well-known retailer site. You know, that's a good thing, isn't it? Because of the problems they had already, it was hard to find, and this is a great achievement. Our changes resulted in 2,000 more people completing their task of buying clothing on a well-known brand, and this is every month. So it is making a difference. It's helping them to buy more clothing, and also 300 more people are now booking appointments on the healthcare booking site, thanks to greater clarity, and thanks again to experimentation. So we are making a big difference. Okay, so yes, I think experimentation needs a bit of a rebrand, actually, if it's going to be widely adopted throughout organizations. So what can teams do to improve and change the perception? I thought I would talk about this first, because I think that most experimentation and optimization teams do very much have the customer in mind, and they have great intentions to, of course, improve the customer experience of the products and services that they're working on. But it's very easy, I believe, for teams to lose sight of the people behind the data. For them to, when we're talking about conversion rates and AOVs and PDPs and PLPs and click-through rates and all of this, it's easy to start thinking about optimizing numbers, to start thinking about, we're trying to make that number bigger from this page. So what typically happens is that, and because we do a lot of training and enablement, I get to see a lot of different teams and different setups. I often see brainstorming sessions focusing on optimizing a particular page. Not always with great insight or anything, which I'll go into a little bit. But their intention is, we need to improve the conversion rate from this page or some, and that's it. Now let's brainstorm ideas to do that. The problem there is that they're forgetting who they're doing things for. You know, they're just trying to increase numbers and not thinking about, actually, we're trying to solve any existing problems that there is on that page, and we're trying to make the lives, and we're trying to make it easier for people to do that task to complete. So it's that people thing we need to put back into the equation. So just a few points here. We need to be more customer centric. I mean, we are at its heart customer centric, but we need to be more so. You know, we need to take some of the great methods developed over the years in UX and design research, such as usability testing, for example. But we also need to humanize the language that we use, so that anybody throughout the organization can understand. So, for example, we need to spend more time observing your customers using your product. You know, all teams should be doing this. The funny thing is, you know, in many organizations, it's just they already have a UX team doing great research, but it's so disconnected to, say, the experimentation team or the optimization team. So it's a case of just having a conversation and actually attending some of those already, or some of those usability testing sessions they're already having. And you'll get amazing insight into where the problems are and inspiration for brand new ideas. I've always found usability testing to be so valuable when it comes to existing products, where in the past it was done mostly on prototypes for developing brand new products, but actually I found it amazingly useful for optimization. We need to dig deeper and ask more questions before jumping to solutions. A bit like I was saying about the brainstorming of one single page and trying to increase numbers that way. We need to dig deeper, spend more time in the problem area first, because then the solutions become so much easier. And yes, a greater understanding equals a higher win rate at the end of the day. And we need to collaborate with more teams, UX, customer insight teams, and just talk to users and talk to the salespeople if you're a retailer and if the stores are open, as hopefully they will be one day. Go and talk to the sales team who speak to the customers. All of this will get you closer to them. And number two, and this is a biggie actually, and this is a very good method of helping you to achieve number one, which is getting close to your customer. Make sure there's a good customer problem statement for every experiment that you do. And when you don't have one, like in that instance of people saying, let's improve the product details page to improve conversion rates from here, then go out and try and find and look and talk to customers and find what existing research there is, so that you can create a problem statement based off real data. So a good example of a problem statement is this one. We believe users are having a difficulty narrowing down the list of products on mobile because in usability testing, participants completely miss the filters, and in analytics, we can see that only 2% click on the filters. So rather than just go and improve the product listings page, this insight and having a problem statement means that when we focus on a whole lot of experiments to improve this area, we can kind of laser focus on the main opportunities and end up with a higher success rate. To illustrate the fact, this is a kind of vague problem statement. So some people don't have any, but this is a kind of vague one. We think we have an issue with the high bounce rates on mobile product pages. Right? It's very vague, isn't it, really? And the problem that the solutions are far less likely to be successful. They're far less likely to hit the mark with this type of thing. But if we dig a bit deeper, and in this case, just looking at the analytics, and actually this is something I've seen on so many retail sites, this is a real problem. A better customer problem statement would be a large number of users arriving on the mobile product details pages from Google Shopping are bouncing and heading straight back to Google. So we've figured out that they're coming from Google Shopping. That's the offending source. And we believe this is because there is no breadcrumb navigation on mobile or any other easy way to see the full range of products. So suddenly you can see how useful this is. We know that it's more or less just for those people coming from Google Shopping, which is a really common thing because they start their journey on Google Shopping and kind of use Google Shopping as their product listings page, and then they go to websites and go back again. But quite a few retailers don't have any kind of breadcrumb navigation or any link back to the main category page. So there's really no option if that blue t-shirt isn't the right color for them. There's no way back to see all the t-shirts. And the great thing about a very practical, data-driven problem statement like this is that it makes the solutions really easy to come up with. And actually, some of the things that have worked brilliantly have just been introducing a link back to the main categories. So a link that says see all t-shirts at the top, where a breadcrumb be on mobile, but also promoting some of the recommendations in a more prominent position. And those things have worked really well in the past for me on many different websites. So the other thing is humanizing your hypotheses. There are so many hypotheses out there like this one. By making the CTA sticky, this will increase clicks on the add to basket button and increase conversion rates. So it's, I mean, if there was a really good problem statement as well, it wouldn't be so bad. But often this is all you get. You just see one hypothesis. Whereas if we humanize it, what I mean by that is that we start to think about the people we're designing for and optimizing for and include them in the hypotheses. So for example, by improving the visibility of the add to basket button when people have scrolled down the page, this will make it easier and quicker for them to add to basket. We expect this to increase the number of people adding to basket and ultimately buying products. So it's a much more useful hypothesis. And back to that first point when I said about humanizing the general language, this is something that any team member will be able to understand. And it's a lot more human, it's a lot more kind of customer friendly. And then there's the results, of course. So humanizing your results so that everybody can understand again. Because one of the challenges in experimentation is to just communicate to everybody the results, the learnings that you're getting. And if you were to send around explanations like the one on the left, variation 2, the sticky ATB CTA, add to basket CTA on mobile PDPs was the winner, resulted in an 8% increase in clicks, SIG, and 6% increase in CVR, SIG. It won't mean a lot to many people unless you work in optimization or analytics. But if you were to change it slightly to something like this, the sticky add to basket button on mobile product details pages resulted in 8% more people adding items to their basket and 6% more completing their task of buying a product. This is going to be much more understandable by everybody. And this is something that even the senior stakeholder could copy and paste and put into their monthly management meetings. What happens is that all that great work that you do in experimentation will be shared around the organization so much easier if we just humanize the results and the way we talk about data in this way. And it's going to become extremely important as we move to different ways of embedding experimentation into businesses. So the more traditional way is for the optimization team to sit on its own in a centralized kind of method and then manage all the experimentation and testing themselves. But some people are moving towards a decentralized method where actually the experimentation experts are embedded in the product teams. Or there's the other way, which is center of excellence, where they're embedded in product teams, but there's an overall center of excellence which are overseeing experimentation throughout the organization. But as we move towards the right, again, language is extremely important, that we start to use language that everybody understands. And it will, I believe, it will also improve the reputation of experimentation because everybody will start to understand that we are making a big difference to the customers. We are a major cog in the whole process. And hopefully they will start to realize the massive potential of experimentation for doing much bigger things, and they'll also understand why we really do need to we do need to move to a more data-driven model for everything that we do. And then I thought I'd finish off with a little bit about design ethics, related to some of the examples I showed at the start. And I think some of the tips around humanizing the language and the data will actually make quite a big difference when it comes to design ethics. That's what I think it will do. So, and it will make it less likely that teams will do the wrong thing. So remember this again. This was where the oh, and before I go on, I don't know the details behind this. I was just one of the users who experienced it, so I don't know what Amazon did to what they tested or what they experimented with, what the other variations were, and I also don't know what their hypotheses were. But this was the example of basically hiding the cancellation options under video settings. But if they did have a problem statement, say the problem statement is, we believe the cancellation rate is high because it's too easy for users to cancel their subscriptions. Say that was their problem statement. And say they might have had one of those hypotheses, one of those very business-centric hypotheses, like by introducing friction into the cancellation process, we will reduce the cancellation rate. You know, it's missing the human element, isn't it? And there's something weird here where when you write it in this way, it almost makes it sound kind of okay. You know, we're introducing friction. Friction is a bit of a very, almost a technical word. It doesn't sound that bad, actually. And I think it's just kind of, but imagine if we humanize the hypothesis for this and actually told it like it was. Like, by making it harder for people to find the cancellation options, many will get so frustrated that they'll give up trying, which will result in fewer cancellations. Like, this is the humanized hypothesis. And there's such a stark difference between the two. And I believe that if you were stuck to the ones on the left, actually, you could launch that test and you'll be fine with it. It's just introducing a bit of friction here and there, and we'll see if it has a reduced cancellation rate. That's brilliant, isn't it? But if your hypotheses were the one on the right, I suspect that it may be flagged up as a test that we shouldn't run. Maybe something that isn't good for the customers. Just thinking back to Bezos's statement at the start where everything is customer driven. If that was the case and this hypothesis was humanized like this, then I don't believe they would have gone ahead with that treatment and launched it. So thank you very much. And please let me know any questions that you have, and do get in touch. I think it's a really interesting topic overall, and it's certainly something I'm going to continue to explore.